Welcome to the 5%ers. I'm your host Nathan Annie Barber. I'm joined as ever by the wonderful Daniela Genus.
Hello.
Every week we discuss an inspiring book that we're reading that advances us towards our goal of becoming a 5%er. This week Daniela and I are reading The Obstacle is the Way, Ryan Holiday's book. Why do some people get rich in a recession? How did Gandhi play to his weaknesses and use the might of the British Empire against itself? How did Steve Jobs make the impossible possible on a regular basis? The greatest men and women in the world didn't have exceptional luck, talent, or expertise. All they had was a simple maxim: what stands in the way becomes the way. In this book, we learn philosophical principles that have existed for thousands of years and that have helped great people to turn insurmountable obstacles to their advantage. In this book, we learn how to succeed not in spite of the challenges that we have in front of us, but because of them. So I've read this book twice now. I found something new each time that I've read it. So many underlinables, half the book that I've underlined in different coloured ink. This book is for anyone who sometimes feels stuck or hurt or frustrated, that things aren't really going the way that they want them to go, or they're not as progressing as quickly as they'd like them to progress in their lives or their businesses. Daniela, what did you think of the book?
I thought it was really, really good. It was a slow burner.
Okay.
When I was reading it for the first few days.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was an okay book, but it didn't really overwhelm me in any way. But by the time I got kind of halfway through.
Halfway through?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It got me from page 1.
No, it didn't get me from page 1.
No? What was it?
It might have not even been halfway through. It was from the story of Reuben Carter, Hurricane Carter. I don't really know exactly what page that was on.
Okay.
But it was from that point that I thought, oh, this book is actually quite...
Okay, well that's probably a good place to start then, because that kind of crystallizes what the main premise of the book is. Mm-hmm. The fact that... So can you tell the story? What is the story of
Hurricane Carter, Reuben Carter, was a black boxer. Was it like the 1940s?
40s, 50s, yeah.
Yeah, so a time in America where segregation and racial discrimination...
Great time to be black in America at that time.
Not so different from now. Obviously a lot of challenges, etc.
A bit different from now.
He was, so it depends on your perspective.
Okay.
He was arrested for murder, a crime he didn't commit, and the story, I've heard the story before, but the way the book tells it is this idea that he made the decision that no matter what happened, they couldn't take anything away from him.
Yeah.
And all he would do whilst in prison is learn the law and learn about every aspect of the law, so he was able to beat his case. And it took 19 years for him to prove his innocence and for him to be released from prison. But even when he was released, he didn't pursue any sort of court case. He didn't try to get any compensation. He didn't blame any of the prison guards. He knew that the system was wrong, but he made the decision that I'm going to make this to my advantage, and I'm still here and I'm still alive. And it was just very powerful of a story. So it was actually quite near the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, exactly. And it basically comes back to this whole idea of choice. Like, we choose to see whether something is a good thing for us or a bad thing for us, right? And he goes on to say on page 16 that you'll come across obstacles in life, fair and unfair, and you'll discover time and again that what matters most is not what these obstacles are, but how you see them, right? And he says things like desperation, despair, fear, powerlessness. These are reactions and functions of our perceptions. You must realize nothing makes us feel this way. We choose to give in to such feelings, or like Rockefeller, choose not to. J.D. Rockefeller, again, succeeded in spite of having lots of obstacles in front of him. So again, it just speaks to this point that whatever issues and challenges and obstacles that we have in our path, we can choose to see them as obstacles that stop us from progressing, or we can choose to see them as things that advance us towards our goal, right? Mm-hmm. A little way down in the book, he talks about this whole idea of traffic lights, right? So he says people that get stopped at, life is like traffic lights. You don't bemoan the fact that it's a red light or that it's an amber light, right? Because you slow down and you have to stop.
I do.
Well, maybe you do, but it's the whole idea that, like, you don't rail up against the world about it. You stop, right? But it doesn't stop you from getting to your ultimate goal. So you say, okay, right now I'm
Slows
stopping.
you down.
It slows you down and it's frustrating, but then what can you take away from those experiences, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what was very powerful about the book. For me, I am somebody that my mum always says, and I probably agree that I have catastrophic thinking, and I would always think, oh, because this happened, this is going to happen, and oh my gosh, it's awful. And I'm somebody that will keep pushing ahead, but I will very much choose the kind of worst case scenario.
And he says that's a good thing, actually, because he game plans. Well, in certain instances, yeah.
Because then you prepare for the
worst.
But sometimes I think that I probably indulge myself in the worst. And I guess, for example, as you just gave this story of the traffic light, I am someone that if the light gets red and I'm trying to get someone, oh, for goodness sake, every light's red. So annoying. When actually...
Yeah.
And something that I've tried to tell myself is, okay, so the light's red, but if the light was green, I could have continued going and somebody could have hit me.
Yeah.
And that's part of my catastrophic thinking, obviously.
So each side is bad. Stopping me is bad. If I go, it's bad.
No, but that helps me to appreciate, okay, I have to use this red light.
Good.
And I think that that's kind of what he is saying. That actually the obstacles are leading you on to something better if you choose to perceive it that way.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a very difficult thing to master.
Yeah.
And he does say it's not an easy thing, but
it's not.
To try and change and take yourself away from the emotion.
Yeah.
So on page 115, I really liked this idea of rename it and claim it.
Yeah.
It's talking about another black boxer. He seems to like using black boxes.
Well, they had it rough.
Well, yeah.
Sorry.
Another black boxer, he was very good at what he did, but he suffered very, very blatant racism whenever he would be boxing. And he took it in.
Yeah.
He made it his thing and he laughed and smiled, and no matter what happened, he just maintained his grace and composure. And that's hard. And
also he didn't show on any outward kind of emotion, like negative emotion, because even though people were kind of against him and in that situation it would have been easy to get angry and frustrated, and that makes it even worse for the white audience, right? Oh, look at this black guy, he's angry and bitter, whatever. So he kind of had this kind of blank face, and they were like, and that made him even more scary, like, oh, this guy with no emotion kind of thing. But he kind of bottled that up in front of him, and that's what goes back to your point about emotions. It's about, yes, certain things happen to us, and we have this automatic emotion that bubbles up, but we get to choose how we respond to that emotion.
But this is the thing, and it's very interesting that we were reading this book this week.
Okay. For me as well.
Yeah, I don't believe that anything happens by coincidence.
Go on.
This week was a very, very challenging week for me in terms of trying to achieve my goals. And
definitely.
And I just felt that the weather changed, and I'm very susceptible to being quite emotional when it starts to get too dark and miserable. And I was trying to read the book and say, okay, I can do this, and I didn't. And I think that's testament to, it is it's not a quick fix. That you can't just decide today, I'm not going to let my emotions control me. It's a process, but you have to be committed to working through that process. And once you decide to commit yourself to it, then you can start to actually to do it. And I think that's the idea that I took. So I have a child, and actually it's hard trying to do all of the things that I want to do, and even just to go to meetings sometimes it's very challenging. But how can I use that to my advantage? Well, number one, she wakes up very early. So, like today, she woke up earlier. Instead of doing what I normally do, which is lounge around, like, oh my gosh, why don't you go back to sleep? I'm so tired. I went and got her dressed, I got myself dressed, and I started the day, and I already feel more positive than I did probably earlier in the week where I did just that. Oh my gosh, why are you waking up?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's no coincidence that we read this book this week.
At the right time. Yeah, definitely. I think just like being aware of the mechanisms, just so that, as you said, it is a work in progress. And I don't think even Ryan Holiday himself is like perfect in all of these ways. He even says it himself, the author. But just by knowing or having the tools to be able to say, all right, I'm feeling this way, I don't want it to let it affect me. What's a tool that I have that I can use to kind of deal with this? Whereas if we didn't have something like this, you just give in to your emotions, right? And you just give in to the way that you're feeling, because there's no other way that you know of dealing with it, right? Which is what's happened to me sort of prior to reading this book. But every time I encounter a challenge now, I'm like, okay, what do I have to learn from this? Take a step back. What am I feeling? Is this right? Is this the right way of feeling? Can I choose to think in a different way? And that has a really positive effect on just, on the outcome. And Shakespeare says, I mean, one of the most famous Shakespeare quotes is, "Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so."
Yeah.
Right, which I love that.
Yeah, so it's really about how do you change your thinking to see bad things as good things.
Yeah.
And I think that is an arduous task,
Yeah.
but it's not insurmountable. It can be achieved.
Yeah, yeah.
I remembered words. I've been really struggling for the past year with remembering my words, my vocabulary since I've had a baby.
Really?
Yeah, it's a problem.
Well,
and
it's down to the reading.
Yeah, and I'm managing to
it's coming
articulate
back.
myself.
Better.
Because normally I would have said, yeah, whatever those two words are.
Yeah, people would have still understood what you're saying.
Yeah, but obviously
okay.
it's much better to articulate yourself effectively.
Probably, yeah.
The two.
Okay. Okay, cool. And yeah, so just to sort of underline that, another story that he tells, because he tells so many stories in the book that relate
That's what
to,
I liked about
yeah.
the book. I think I've realised from doing this reading challenge is that I really love the books that are littered with stories.
Because it makes you remember them so much more, right? So one of the stories that he tells to illustrate this point is where there's a king in a village, and to illustrate the fact that because everyone in the village has become complacent, because the village had become quite rich and affluent, and people were quite wealthy, the king was feeling that people are starting to become a little complacent here. So he said he wanted to test them or challenge them. So he put a big boulder on the main road leading in and out of the city, and so no one could get in or out, right? No one could trade, couldn't pass, or what have you. A huge boulder. And then what he did is he waited in the bushes to see, which is as a king does. What kind of mean king is this? You know what I mean? Waited in the bushes to see like what people's responses would be to this boulder that's in the middle of the road, stopping them from from doing what they need to do. And people came and saw this boulder, and they were like, they bemoaned their luck, they cussed the king. They're like, what the hell is wrong with this king? What's wrong with this dude? And but they just left. They didn't do anything about it. And then other people came and they cussed. And they were like, oh, the gods, blah, 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 left. And there was this beggar that came, and he was just like, he was frustrated. But then after a while, he was like, what can I do to move this thing? So he pushed it, didn't work, tried different things, didn't work, actually made a lever, put it in the ground, made a wedge, and then slowly started to move the boulder. And then the boulder moved, and then underneath the boulder was this like pot of gold, whatever, or some money. And then, the king came back and said, well done, you passed the test, or whatever. But it just goes to show that whatever obstacle is in the way, you can always find a way to overcome it, right? And through overcoming it, there are kind of, there's a brick road, there's a yellow brick road, there's an upside to every challenge. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't see. The fact that, there's this thing in front of me, what can I do to get around? And it goes back to sort of just yesterday, actually. You had a problem with the computer.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to tell that story?
In my meeting, I had an important meeting on Thursday, and halfway through, whilst I was typing what somebody was saying, the computer just turned off, which was kind of embarrassing. I assumed that the battery died, as did the person I was meeting with. But went home, forgot all about it. Yesterday, went to do my work. I was feeling really amped, like, okay, I can do this. The sun's shining, I feel good. And the computer wouldn't come on. I couldn't work it out. I tried to call ASA support, called ASA support, and the guy said it'll be £45 and something for them to just come and collect it. Before they've even told me any problem. Once they tell me the problem, then that will be another charge. I said to myself, no. I hung up the phone and I worked it out and I fixed it.
Right.
And it was that, I guess that was the obstacle. Do I want to spend £45 now? No, I don't. Yeah. But I need my computer to work. And that made me, I guess, more resourceful in trying to...
It does, yeah. So he says the lack of resources that people have actually make you more creative. So don't bemoan the fact that, you don't have the startup funds that you need, or you're not as, intelligent as you think that you need to be, or you don't have the right, environment. Use those things as a fuel to actually get you to where you want to go. He uses many examples of people who have been blind and deaf and what have you, and that have created amazing things in the world.
But I do think many people should read this book, because I know a lot of people that they just blame life and everything. I don't have these because my parents didn't do that, or my parents didn't do that, or when I was at school this happened, or my boss did that. And I can moan about stuff.
Me too. We all do at times.
We all do it, but I don't like. I think it's very counterproductive, these people that can't move past something that's happened in the past and move forward. So I think that this is a very valuable book would be a very valuable book for many people.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Talk about this idea of like, don't panic, like control your emotions and don't panic. Because he says when people panic, they make mistakes.
It's so true.
Go
it's
on.
true. And when I was reading that, every time I read these books, I relate it to a specific incident in my life.
Go on.
When I was reading this idea of when you panic, you make mistakes. I remembered I was doing an event a couple of years ago when I ran my event management business. And something external, I had hired an external company to provide tables and chairs. And they sent the right amount of chairs, but 10 tables less. Because obviously there were more ones. Because why would I want an extra 100 chairs with no tables, but whatever.
Yeah.
But we didn't work this out until maybe an hour before the event. I completely shut down. And I've had bad things happen at events before, and I've managed to control myself. But
what do you do in that
I didn't know what to do. I couldn't think straight. We managed. Big client? Yeah, and it had been a regular client that we had, and luckily they understood and they hired us again the next year. But I literally panic stricken. I couldn't think, and we managed to get extra tables. But then the tables that we got extra, the original tables seated 12, the new tables seated 10. We've got a table plan that seats 12 people. What do I do? And I always remember sitting on the stairs of the venue with the assistant of the person that had hired us, trying to work it out. And it's like I'm looking at the paper, and I can't see anything. It wasn't making any sense.
Wow.
I was freaking out. So this lesson about when you panic, you make mistakes is true. Had I said, okay, this has happened, I need to sort this out, I need to maintain composure, I probably would have presented myself much better. But they could see I was panicking.
You were panicking.
I was like...
and that panics other people. Like, you're the person who should know what you should be doing.
I completely lost it. It was very scary. So, and the story that he uses, astronauts have the panic trained out of them because in space you panic. If you panic, you die. It's a very valuable tool. Because if you can manage those kind of scary, overwhelming, I guess, life-threatening situations, coolly, calmly and collectively, then you'll be able to operate at a much higher level.
Definitely.
Whereas if you're somebody that panics at the slightest thing, if you're making loads of mistakes, how do you progress? And for me, that was one of the kind of defining points in my event management career where I had to ask myself, am I really ready for this? Because although it was quite a big error, it shouldn't have shut me down in the way that it did, and it really did.
And it did. So how will you train yourself out of that now?
I guess using some of the principles in the book. So I guess how I'm learning, especially when I'm dealing with smaller challenges, training myself to respond differently, because I think that's where it starts. If you let little things shake you, then the big things are going to shut you down. Whereas if you learn to control yourself when, I guess, minor incidents occur, like I just had one a minute ago and I did lose my mind. Mine's also a temper, because I've got a temper, so I get irritated and I run very quickly.
But it's about recognizing it.
Yeah, when you so now it's about when I feel that this is about to happen, rein it in and control it. And the more I learn to do that with the smaller things, then when the bigger things come,
it'll translate to the bigger things.
because I would have learned that skill. I guess it's like a muscle, isn't it?
It is. That's what he talks about. Like the same way that we build muscles in our body, it's the same way that the brain builds muscles, right? Yeah. You have to work on it. And it goes back to something that happened to me actually this week. So I'm trying to set up a business at the moment. I'm trying to win new clients. There was a pipeline of prospects, really interesting prospects last week that I thought I was going to win one of them. None of them actually came through, and it kind of deflated me, right? Because I'd invested a lot of time and effort and money and thinking, and I was like, yeah, one of these guys is going to convert, and radio silence from all of them, right? So it got, like, at the beginning of the week, it got me really down and depressed, and I was thinking, damn, like, you know, I started almost a little panicking a little bit, because I'm like, where am I going to find new business from, and how, you know, there aren't any other prospects. And it was funny that during the time I was panicking, I was actually reading, in the downtime, I was actually reading the book, and it said, look, you know, panic doesn't add anything constructive to your life, right? There's nothing good that comes from panic. But recognize it, think about what you need to do, and then use it as a way of moving forward. So I sat down, formalized the plan. How can I inexpensively target other prospects? Because that's the other thing. I'm hemorrhaging cash from being able to kind of, you know, target the people that I want to target. So I thought about, and I've kind of changed the business model in a way where I'm removing a lot of costs. It's so much more cost efficient now, and it's all because I stopped panicking and I stopped thinking negatively and the worst. So really good time to read this book.
Pause.
We need to pause.
Yeah, 'cause I wanna. If we stop, because if you keep talking and then stop, then when you try to edit it, so you need to stop, freeze for a minute, and then stop, so that when you're editing, you can do it seamlessly. Is it working?
Yeah, still working. There are people on there.
Yeah.
But you stopped it.
Yeah. But you don't want the videos too long, or when people are watching afterwards, they're not going to watch all the way through.
Right. Okay.
They're too long.
Okay, so what do you think about this idea of objectivity and subjectivity? So we can be objective with someone else's life, but we're subjective with our own.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that, but it's just easier, isn't it?
Yeah. Because, I mean, the example that he gives is that everyone can kind of give advice to other people about what they should do in their lives, their relationships, their finances, their business, and what have you. Yeah, this is what you need to do because you're objective. It's kind of like it doesn't concern you. But when it comes to your own life, you bring emotion and you bring feeling and you bring all these different things, and you're not able to make a rational decision. Whereas other people can just look at it and go, you should just do this, this, and that. So what do you think about that idea?
Well, that's one of the ideas that I highlighted.
Oh, okay.
This idea of clarity, not sympathy. So you taking yourself out of a situation and trying to look at it objectively as though it was happening to somebody else. And I think it's true because you bring all the baggage when you're trying to make a decision for yourself, when actually you don't necessarily do that with other people. I personally try to be very objective with myself. And because I know that sometimes I can be slightly unreasonable, particularly when it comes to kind of relationships, I therefore ask other people. Like I have people that I call who I say are my rationalizers.
Okay.
So where you look at this from your objective view. Am I right or am I wrong? And then when you tell me my answer, then I can reaffirm whether I was right or wrong. And I find that that's helpful for me. And I think in doing that, it's made me a much more reasonable individual.
Okay.
So I think it's true. Learning to do it for yourself is a different thing.
Tough.
I don't think I'm all the way there yet.
Yeah.
But I think I'm on the way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because I've always wondered how is it possible that I'm so good at giving people advice, but to take my own advice and to do things in my own, I struggle. I'm like, oh, should I do this or should I do that?
Yeah,
and
but it's about asking
difficult.
yourself that question. It's funny because I said this to somebody about an hour ago. If you were giving this, you're telling me something and you want me to advise you.
Yeah. If
you were saying exactly what you're saying to me, if someone was saying that to you, what would you tell them to do? There's your answer. This was an hour ago. And it's true. If it's an advice type thing and you can't advise yourself, imagine one of your friends telling you that same thing. What would you tell them?
Yeah.
And that takes out the emotion. What would you tell them? So now if that's what you tell them, then you need to do that.
Right.
And stop thinking about what do you want to do? What would you tell someone else to do in this exact situation?
Right. Yeah, true. Good point. He had this idea about focusing on the moment, right? Which is hard. But he talks about the fact that in the beginning there were so many, throughout life, that there are so many successful businesses that are set up and started in a recession. So Revlon, Costco, Coors, General Motors, Procter & Gamble, Microsoft, LinkedIn.
I found that really surprising actually, especially right? Procter & Gamble.
Procter & Gamble. So in the worst economic time in the world, entrepreneurs are like, yeah, let's do this. You know what I mean?
It's funny, I started my business officially in 2008.
Wow, that's in the middle of it.
Yeah, I'd kind of been dabbling for the 2 year previously, but I registered officially in 2008.
Yeah. So basically it's saying that while everyone else sees the economic or the external environment as negative and down and not the right time to start something, other people are just focusing on the moment. What can I do to put one step in front of the other and advance my dreams, right? So he says it's because they focus on the moment, what was in front of them at the time. And I use the example of Donald Trump, right? So everyone's really emotional about Donald Trump being president right now and just kind of caught up in that. But my thing to that is, and going on to sort of what he says here and this whole idea of focusing on the moment, what can we do? What can we do about that now? What impact is it having directly on our day-to-day lives? And should it stop us from advancing our own businesses, our own ideas, our own careers on a day-to-day basis. And my argument is that the external environment that we don't have any control over shouldn't stop us from doing that.
Oh no, it shouldn't stop you. You should be aware of it. I think that's any business leader or business teacher or whatever will say you should also always know your economic environment. That's the whole point of doing pestle analysis, political, environmental, I don't remember the full acronym.
Social,
technological, legal.
Yeah.
Environmental is last, so it's economic is the
Okay.
E, sorry. So you should always know, but no, it shouldn't stop you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
It's about, I guess, finding how does this particular situation, and to be honest, that's something that I think that I've done. So I'm looking around and saying, okay, there's a lot of negative feeling within the black community because of all of this kind of right-wing propaganda and far-right growth across Europe and I guess in America now. How do I galvanize black people to do something about this, and not do something about that, but to move us forward based upon that? And that was the kind of thinking behind me wanting to start a Black Professionals Members Network. Not because I want to stop far right, the growth of the far right, because I can't do that. But if we can unify black people to do something positive, then that kind of makes everything else not null and void, but less impactful.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, but ultimately it's about sort of seeing the opportunity that's in front of you and then grasping it with both hands, right? Mm-hmm. Putting one step in front of the other and then saying to the external environment, yes, there's nothing I can do about the far right movement, externally, but what is in my control? What can I do right now to advance whatever objective, mm-hmm. right? And that goes back to a similar idea that he talks about later on in the book about trusting the process. What do you think about that? So he talks about, if we have a big objective, whether it's starting a business or, any new project or getting a job, from where you are now to the dream that you have in the future, it's a big kind of insurmountable gap. It's like, I see it, I know what I want, but where I am now, it's this huge gap. So how do I get from here to there, right? And he says, trust in the process. So break it down into small incremental chunks and then do the first bit and the second bit and the third. And then it goes back to this whole idea of how do you eat an elephant, right? One piece at a time. So, what do you think about that? And have you applied that to your own life in any way?
Yeah, that's kind of a philosophy I live by. Everything that I do, I usually do milestone plans and break stuff down into task lists. I use Trello, which is like a to-do list tool.
Plug.
Because I just think it's a fantastic
it's a good tool.
Because it's true. If you say, I want to start and run a multi-million-pound business, I'm going to start today. What does that mean?
Yeah.
How long is that going to take?
Yeah.
Whereas if
and
I
it's
say...
possible to do, yeah.
Yeah, but you can't just start there at the end. You need to do the bits in between. But if I say, okay, what I try to do is to get to here, what do I have to do? Let's go backwards.
Yeah.
And then I'll start at the beginning and I can do each little chunk.
Yeah.
For me, I do think that sometimes, people just have these big goals and they don't have any sort of plan. Whether that's an immediate plan or a long-term plan, they don't have any plan. And then get frustrated when you can't get there. But what do you expect?
Yeah.
If you're leaving here to go to New York, you know that you have to... Do you know what I mean? You
get
have
out
to
your
get
door.
Here, you need to get to Heathrow.
I need to always keep on persevering and in the face of challenges. But sometimes, Ella, you can have such a you lose your biggest client. You go out of business. You get a divorce. These things are traumatic, life-changing things, How do you see that as a positive? Where do you work from? How do you see that and take that and then run with it and say, okay, I'm going to turn this around? It's very difficult to do that.
It's difficult, but it depends how committed you are to the learning. If you're not committed to learning from it, then it's the end of the world. I'm just going to sit here and die. If you can get through it and you're committed to, I guess, acknowledging what you learn. I've heard, maybe on a TV show, I don't know. I remember before somebody saying, getting divorced made me a better husband to my new wife.
Oh, wow.
And it's true. You knew, or if you take the time to reflect, if you're somebody that's got a divorce, you can look and say, this is what didn't work. So now when I do this again, I'm going to do it properly.
Yeah.
If somebody's divorced 3 times, then that, to me, is testament to the fact that you're just not learning. But yeah, so it's not an easy thing, but nothing is easy. It's just about whether you're committed to learning from the process. I've had some tragedies in my life. What approach do I take? My approach has always been, wow, I'm actually stronger than I probably give myself credit for.
Yeah.
So if I can endure this, I can probably endure most things.
Yeah.
And keep it moving.
Yeah. It's funny. He uses the example of the way that you strengthen an archway is to put weight on top of it, because the weight actually puts the bricks together and makes it stronger. So that's how you need to be tested, by adding weight, right? But obviously it's not a good feeling when you're going through it at the time.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, as I said, it's not an easy process, and it is about this idea of teaching yourself to do it.
Okay.
And I guess changing your mindset. I didn't agree necessarily with what he said about depression is a choice, because depression, they found, is much more around chemical imbalances, which is very different. However, I do think that's clinical depression. The depression that I went through this week of just I don't want to do anything, that's different.
Yeah.
So I think that is about training myself to think differently.
Yeah.
And not, even though I've been trying since August to say I'm not going to let winter depress me.
Yeah.
I think that
You have to work harder.
yeah, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's so funny. Like, the whole book is basically just about perception and how we see certain things. And we can choose to see certain things as a positive, or we can choose to see certain things as a negative. It just empowers you so much more, right? Instead of being a victim to fate and in your circumstance, you're in control, which I think is very powerful. Are there any parts of the book that you want to highlight and specifically sort of talk to?
I did love this idea of unity over self. We're in this together, and that was on page 165. And he kind of looks at this idea that if you're only about self and you're only dealing with progressing yourself, when things happen, you're going to take them personally. Whereas if you're looking at collectively moving life forward, I guess helping people, then any setback you will see as another opportunity to move forward, to help somebody else, and give you more of an impetus to not give up. I really liked that idea, and as somebody that's quite passionate about social change and that kind of thing, that really resonated with me. So he's saying, even if we can't carry the load all the way, we're going to take our crack at picking up the heavy end. We're going to be of service to others, help ourselves by helping them, becoming better because of it, drawing purpose from it. Stop making it harder on yourself by thinking about I stopped putting that dangerous I in front of events. I did this, I was so smart, I had that. And I guess that's about ego as well. That we want to be that it was me that did it. Whereas actually, if we all had a much more collective approach, I've always on about the world probably wouldn't be in the state that it's in, but it's true.
Okay, yeah. Taking ego out of it and becoming more humble.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Ratings.
Wait, can we pause this?
Okay. Oh no, critique first, actually. You're fast.
That's right.
Okay, so critiques.
I'm not good at this critiquing thing unless I hate the book.
It was your idea.
I know. I think it's a good idea, but I'm just not very good at it. Because I like the book, and whenever I like a book, I struggle to critique it. Because I didn't really see anything negative about the book, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was a very good book.
Yeah.
It was written well. I love the fact that he listed it with so many interesting stories. It was interesting, it wasn't boring. The English was good, it was easy to follow.
Very easy to read, yeah.
I don't have any negative critiques.
It's tough, right? And especially because he's drawing from ancient Stoic philosophical principles that have existed for thousands of years, right? The Romans, the Chinese, and dynasties, like thousands and thousands of years, people have used these principles to overcome challenges in their lives, right? And even up to present day, like people use them every day, and they may not. He talks about it in the book that they may not even consciously know that they're using the principles, but the way that people deal with issues and challenges, they are using Stoicism, right? It's a whole way of like seeing the world. So he talks about Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and like all these people that we know of in life. You want to say something?
Obviously, and Barack Obama.
And Barack Obama, right? So like such ancient principles, like I don't think that are timeless. What can you do to like denigrate them or like take away from them? You know, if they've stood the test of time, it's clearly that they've done that for a reason, right? Because they work. So I don't really have that much criticisms either, to be honest. Although I feel as though we should, but
me too. I feel like we should, but I can't think of any. So I was hoping that you would have.
No, I don't have any. It's a great book. It's a great book. I definitely recommend it. Anyway, rating.
9.
9.
Yeah, but
Why
I
not
don't
a
know
10?
why. No, I'm not giving it a 10 because I don't. It was very good, but I don't think it was as good as. What did we read last week? My memory is so bad.
Malcolm Gladwell. Outliers.
Outliers. Yeah, that's it. And I give Outliers a 10. I don't think it was as amazing as the Outliers, but it was a very good
Okay,
one.
so that should give you something to critique then.
Yeah, but I don't know what it is. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what it is.
Just not as good as that.
Yeah, but I don't know why it wasn't as good as that.
Yeah.
I just found Outliers just
Phenomenal.
Whereas this is good, but it wasn't like fascinating.
Okay.
So I guess that's the critique.
Okay, it wasn't fascinating enough. Okay. Needs to be more fascinating, Ryan. Whatever you call yourself. Okay, that's your feedback, Ryan. I'll give it a 10. Okay. Straight up and down. Like, amazing book. Yeah. Like, I can't speak highly enough. As soon as there are very few books that I've read twice. And this is one of them. But
I feel like this is a book you should read twice.
Yeah.
Like this is a book you should probably read every couple
regularly.
Of months.
Yeah.
Just to give you that get up.
Definitely. You know, it's one of those books. So, great. Okay, thank you very much for that. What's the next book?
Good to Great by Jim Collins. The best-selling Built to Last answers the question of what it takes to build an enduring great company from the ground up, but Good to Great answers an even more compelling question. Can a good company become a great company? And if so, how?
Okay. I kind of feel as though this is one of the books as well that like so many business people talk about, and it's like it's bandied around many times. It's kind of old now, relatively old, but I think there are like timeless principles in there.
Yeah.
But it almost feels as though it's more of like a corporate, big business type book rather than like a startup entrepreneurial type book. I think, you know, we'll find that out sort of next week when we review it. But it almost feels as though it's like for corporate America, you know. But yeah, looking forward to reading that. Thank you very much for your time, everyone watching and listening. Thank you very much for your time, Daniela. I'll see you next week. Remember that your success is something that you generate through the person that you become. So become the best possible version of yourself.